I have a metal plate in my neck, a metal plate in my back. I have a device in my hip, which is pretty embarrassing, but I'm going to explain it. It's called a Medtronic's InterStim, and it's a device that is connected to your nerves in your rectum and your vagina. Because of the sexual assault that I experienced with this individual in 2005, the white supremacist.
I came from the mud, there's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree, there's roots where I stand.
All right. Welcome. How are you doing, Kimmy?
I'm good, thank you.
Good,
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So everybody, we got Kim Gomez here. She is coming to tell us her story. We're here on the Send Me podcast, and I just want to say thank you for coming. I really appreciate you coming out here. I know you got kind of a far travel to be here, so I really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I usually just start off and I ask everybody, what their childhood was like. What was it like growing up for you? Where were you born? Those kind of things. So if you don't mind talking about that a little bit.
Sure. I was born and raised in San Francisco, California. My parents lived in the Excelsior district. My childhood at home was just a brother and I. We're about a year and a half apart. And I always noticed favoritism. Noticed my mom really favored my brother over me. Okay. I was daddy's girl. I never felt part of the family, though. I always felt like, am I adopted? Is there another child missing? I just never felt just part of the family whatsoever.
Yeah. Did you understand why you felt that way? Was it just because you felt like there was some sort of favoritism?
I believe my mom, she had some animosity towards me. According to my brother, now this is what I'm discovering later on in life, of course, my mom basically was jealous of me. She said that I took my dad away from her, which is kind of strange. That's a husband and wife relationship is totally different than a father and daughter.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I just thought that was kind of strange, but apparently she just had she didn't want me. She told me straight out at 10 years old, she said, I don't want you. You're a mistake. You're going to amount to nothing. I wish I would have never had you. And her actions validated all that she told me. She would always put hands on me, pull my hair, call me names, always putting me down all the time. And I remember the first time she told me that she didn't want me. I thought at 10 years old that a bottle of cough syrup and a bottle of aspirin would take my life. So at 10 years old, I attempted to commit suicide. Wow. I felt that my life wasn't worth living. If my own mother didn't want me, why be here,
Yeah.
So, and it always seemed like, even though my dad was the man of the house, it seemed like my mom ran the show.
Okay.
She was more the control. I call her a narcissist.
Yeah.
She's very narcissistic to this day. She's still alive, 85 years old, and she's still no part of my life. And I'm okay with that.
Was she a stay-at-home mother, or was she a working mom?
She was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
And she ended up working later on in life as a secretary, but it was way later, like in my teenage years. And I don't know if I mentioned, but I left at 14.
Oh, okay.
From 10 to 14, I just could no longer handle the abuse.
Yeah.
So basically, I didn't actually leave. I decided to, I asked my mom if I can go to a quinceañera, and she said no. So little Kimmy decided she was going to sneak out. So I snuck out, and when I tried to come back, my mom told my dad, if you let the little bitch back, I'll divorce you.
Wow.
So basically, my dad was weak. That's what I think. He had no backbone. He had no balls. He should have stood up to my mom, and he didn't.
Yeah.
And I believe that everything that happened to me from 14 to 18 is all their fault.
Yeah.
All my parents' fault. And my dad was the man of the house, and he should have protected me, and he didn't.
Yeah. And
So-
what kind of work did your dad do?
He was a union painter.
Okay.
Yeah, he even, I believe my dad even participated in painting the Golden Gate Bridge.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so,
So he was away working, so obviously you spent a lot more time with mom.
correct.
So you had to deal with everything that you were going through with mom on a
Correct.
regular basis. Okay.
And I don't think my dad would believe everything that I would tell him. You know, my mom would play the part that, you know, I just was this unruly teenager and I didn't want to cooperate with her and I didn't want to do my chores. And, you know, I just was a rebel. And
Yeah.
that's not the truth. I was a good student in school. I had good grades. I couldn't get into Lowell High School without being an A- B+ average.
Yeah.
And I made it into Lowell High School.
Okay.
However, I never completed high school there because I ended up leaving home. I ended up living a life in the streets. So from 14 to 18, I lived in the Mission District in San Francisco in the streets. I got involved in gangbanging. I got involved in crime. I got involved in drugs. And I have to say this because a lot of people think that you want to do those drugs.
Yeah.
You don't want to do those drugs, but you got to do those drugs because you need to stay awake. You need to be able to defend yourself, especially a 14-year-old female in the streets of San Francisco.
Yeah.
It was no joke, you know. I've slept on park benches. I've slept under the freeway. I've couch surfed. You know, I've stayed in really shitty, low rent places where I've stayed in a crack house.
Yeah.
It was a place I could lay my head for a minute. You know, I've had to do runners in restaurants. I've had to strong arm somebody at gunpoint or with a knife. But I didn't want to do it. You know, it's something that I had to do in order to survive out there. What are you going to do? You're 14. You can't get a job, you know.
Yeah.
My mom and dad wouldn't let me come back. And I found it strange because my dad has a sister and a brother.
Okay.
And my mom has, a brother. Well, some of them are deceased now, of course. But she has, Gloria, Dottie, Judy, my mom. So there's 3 sisters and a brother.
Okay.
And not one family member ever opened their doors to me, ever reached out to me to ask me, did I need anything? When I say I was abandoned, I was abandoned. Like I was left in the streets at 14 years old to fend for myself. And when I say I had nobody, I had
So
nobody.
these family members knew you were on your own and out on the street? Okay.
They all knew. They
So
all knew it.
I do want to kind of rewind you a little bit. I want to come back to this part because I want to hear about your, you know, that entire journey that you had when you were on your own from 14. But you said up until you were 14. Tell me a little bit about what was going on at home with you and your mom that led you to the point where at 10 you're deciding I'm going to take this medication to try to end my life. What was it that made it so bad for you that you had to feel like you needed to take your own life?
It was the constant verbal abuse, constantly putting me down and telling me that I was worthless. I mean, to tell your own child at 10, I don't want you, you were a mistake, I wish I never had you. Yeah. At 10 years old, that hits your heart really fucking hard. Like, it penetrated. It really hit my soul. And it was like, well, fuck, you know, you don't want me. My dad's not putting up any kind of fight, you know, to fend for his own child, his own daughter, his only daughter. Mm-hmm. I feel like, and then the physical abuse. She loved to pull my hair. If I had one ponytail, she would swing me around, throw me up against the wall. If I had 2 ponytails, she'd grab one and throw me around and swing me up against the wall. And it was just verbal, emotional, and physical abuse.
Yeah.
And from 10 to 14, I was just like, this has to stop sooner or later. And when I went to the quinceañera and she didn't let me back, I was like, wow, she really didn't want me. Like, she's going to leave me. She's going to abandon me and leave me in the fucking streets. Yeah. And she did that. And my dad went along with it. And
did you get a chance to talk to Dad at all?
Not at all.
She just kind of kept you.
That was it.
Wow.
The day I left, I never, ever, ever spoke to my mother and my father again. Now, my dad, he would try to go down into the La Mission, into the hood where I was hanging out at, and he'd go down there and he'd bring me a $20 or $40, and he'd tell me, here, go get something to eat, don't drink it, don't smoke it, don't do drugs, whatever. Of course I did whatever I wanted with the money.
Yeah.
But he would try to come see me, and my brother would come down, look for me sometimes too. And it was funny because I heard stories from later on in life that my mom would say that she came looking for me.
Yeah.
And anybody who knew me knew where to find Mama Kim. She's right here on Bartlett and 24th. She's behind McDonald's, She's by the BART station. So I knew she was full of shit. I knew she wasn't coming to look for me. She didn't want nothing to do with me. She was glad I was gone.
Yeah.
I even ran into people who would tell me, they'd look at me like, and I'm like, what's the matter? And they're like, I thought you were dead. I'm like, excuse me? Yeah, I ran into your mom and she said you were dead.
Wow.
So I'm like, what the fuck? Are you joking? My mother's telling people that I'm dead. So,
and you're 14 at this time.
Yeah.
And nobody steps in, nobody,
not one family member.
The schools don't say, where the hell is she at? Nobody's looking for you, nothing.
Nobody.
What, if you don't mind telling, like, around what time period are we talking about? How long ago was this?
Let's see. I am 62.
Okay.
I'll be 63 this month, actually, on the 25th.
Okay.
I got a birthday coming. So, yeah, so it's been many, many years.
Yeah.
And this is actually the first time I've ever put it out there.
Yeah.
Put it out there in the world, in the public eye, to let people know, because I got tired of people thinking, this is my mother's story. She was a runaway. She was just a rebel without a cause. She didn't want to listen to what anybody told her. She wanted to do what she wanted.
Yeah.
And that's not the story. I wanted to come back. You said I couldn't. And my dad went along with it. So what was I going to do? I had no place to go but stay in the streets. So I did whatever I had to do to survive out there. And it wasn't a good life. It wasn't a great life. And I ended up in a foster home with actually she was a classmate.
Okay.
And we went to school together. And she kind of knew what was going on at home, so she asked her mom, can she come stay with us? So we made it legal. We actually went through the court system, and I went and stayed at her house, and her mom was my foster mother.
Okay.
And I ended up this was my first encounter with sex. I was 14, and my foster brother, he was using drugs and alcohol at the time, and he was older than me.
Okay.
He came home, and I had just got home from school. I was
How
in the
much
restroom.
Older?
Yeah, I want to say I was 14. He was probably 18, 19 maybe.
Okay.
And he beat my ass in an empty bathtub and fractured my nose and my tailbone. And took my virginity. So my first experience with sex was extremely violent.
Wow.
I didn't get to be like my friends and save myself for that special boy, a special dude, that didn't happen.
Why did he attack you?
He didn't have a reason. He just was high.
Wow.
He was just... The strange thing is this, though. About, I want to say 3 years ago, approximately, my foster sister reached out to me on Facebook. And she said, hey, My brother told me what he did to you,
Wow.
her biological brother.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, really? And she's like, yeah, and he's found the Lord, and he wants to talk to you, to ask you for forgiveness. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, this happened when I was 14. You know, like I said, I'm 62 now. This just didn't happen too long ago. So I'm thinking to myself, really? You want to ask for forgiveness? So I allowed him to reach out to me.
Yeah.
And I spoke with him. And he said what he did. He admitted to what he did. And I told him, I forgive you, but that's the extent.
Yeah.
He wanted to have a friendship after that. He's married, has a family now. I believe now he's even a pastor or an assistant pastor of a church in the Los Angeles area, maybe.
Yeah.
Not sure where. But yeah, he redeemed himself and he found the Lord and he wasn't on drugs and alcohol anymore. So I do believe people can change. So
absolutely.
I believe that his apology was completely sincere. I mean, he was pretty emotional, and I want to say he was sobbing. He was pretty hysterical as a man, to hear him cry and say, I'm so sorry. I probably ruined your life. I probably made you make bad choices when it came to men. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I thought I was between my mother and you. I mean, the abuse with my mom and then the first man, it was just, So, yeah, it was rough. It was rough. He actually made a second attempt back then. Mm-hmm. And what ended up happening was I was at his brother's house. And we were upstairs. We were all partying. They were playing loud music. And I had gone downstairs because his brother had asked me, hey, can you go get this cassette tape out of the cassette player? And they had a gym downstairs. So okay. I said, sure, no problem. I'll go get it. So when I went down there to go get the cassette, nobody knew that he was down there.
Yeah.
The one who had already assaulted me before. Mind you, when I was first confronted about the first assault, I told everybody I got into a fight at school.
Oh, wow. So he really put injuries on you that were visible.
Right. But nobody believed me because I was a pretty tough cookie, a pretty tough chick. So I know a little bit of karate, a little bit of kickboxing, and a whole lot of crazy. So you put that all three together, you got a pretty good combo, right? Yeah. So he made a second attempt, and this time, I don't know what happened, but the music upstairs went off, and I was able to scream and run out.
Wow.
So when I ran out, I recall his brother, now mind you, this is his biological brother, running out of the upstairs, seeing me out in the streets. I'm freaking out, I'm crying, and some of my story may be a little confusing because I have such lapse in memory sometimes. The story isn't always clear to me. Yeah. So in case I confuse something, I'm sorry.
Well, this is a lot of years ago as well, right?
Yeah. So he ended up putting two and two together. He said, this is who beat you. This is who assaulted you. You didn't have a fight at school.
And this was his older brother?
This was his older brother.
Okay.
So 2 and 2 was put together, and I remember this. He told him, if you ever put a hand on Kimmy ever again, I don't give a fuck if you're my biological brother, I'll kill you.
Yeah, good.
So, yeah, that felt great, but I still didn't feel safe there.
The damage was done.
It was already all bad. Yeah. So little Kimmy wanted to find a way out of that foster home. So I decided to commit another crime. So I went downtown, Market Street, San Francisco area, and I was scoping out people going in and out of banks, in and out of jewelry stores and expensive stores, all that are all down in that vicinity.
Yeah.
And I saw a girl going out of a bank, going out of a jewelry store. I knew she had some cash on her. So I decided I was going to snatch her purse. Well, let me tell you how crazy God works. For her, not for me. I snatched her purse. I'm running down Market Street. Coincidentally, one of the Muni bus drivers sees what's going on. He pulls the bus over. He chases me, and he catches me.
Yeah.
He catches me, and he throws me down. And when I say I had a skid mark on my face, I had a skid mark on my face. Like, my whole face was just skinned up.
Road rash.
Yeah, all on my face. And he called the police. I got arrested. But that was kind of my plan. I was trying to get out of the foster home.
And you're
so
still 14 at this time? Or
I
where were you
am,
right now?
I believe at this time I am, let's see, I was there from 14 to 16.
Okay.
So I'm around 16 and a half maybe.
Okay.
And I'm like, I got to get out of here. You know, I can't stay in this home anymore. And I can't tell nobody what happened to me. You know, I didn't want to tell anybody that I was sexually assaulted at 14 years old. And, you know, I was a virgin. I was ashamed, embarrassed.
Of course. Yeah.
I felt dirty. You know, I felt like, fuck. You know, I just felt nasty. I can't even explain it.
You feel, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you feel like people are going to always look at you as that person, right? Like somebody that's been kind of damaged already,
You're
right?
tattered.
Yeah,
You're torn.
yeah.
You're damaged. Yeah.
I've heard that before. That's why.
You've got flaws and scars and imperfections, you know. But don't we all? I mean, we all have flaws and imperfections, regardless if we've had trauma or not, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I ended up going to juvenile hall, and I ended up in a group home. And the group home was in San Jose, California. I'm not going to say any names.
Yeah.
And I spent, I think, I was emancipated at the age of 17. So I spent like a year to a year and a half there.
Okay.
And I ended up, like I mentioned earlier, some of my story is going to be, I have some memory loss from from what happened to me when I was abused a few years ago, which I will get to later on in my story.
Yeah.
I recall being in the group home, and then I got emancipated at 17, and I can't remember everything that happened between then and then. There's like a gap in my memory of 17 to 22.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I just, I remember still having issues in my life. I believe, okay, I got saved when I was 18. That's when I asked Christ into my life. Okay, let me back up a little bit. I had heard somebody preaching on a corner, actually, on 24th and Mission Street. And it was a really good-looking guy, so it kind of got my attention. Okay. He was talking about Jesus, right? Jesus loves you. Jesus can set you free, and blah, blah, blah. So I was looking at him, and I was like, you know, Jesus, you know, I mean, I knew about God, and I knew about the Lord and all that, but I had never heard it to that extent where asking Jesus into your life can actually make a difference.
Yeah.
So I actually asked Jesus Christ into my life. I believe I was 18 years old when I asked Jesus Christ into my life. And I actually remember a priest from a Catholic church telling me when I was in the streets gangbanging, he said, "I'm going to pray for you, Mama Kim." And I said, "For what?" He said, "Because I believe that God has a calling on your life, and he's going to use you to reach other people that live the same life that you came from, you know, gangbanging, you know, maybe other girls who have been sexually assaulted, girls who've, you know, been abandoned by their parents, who have been, you know, just left. I mean, I was left. Nobody knew if I was alive or dead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people thought you were dead, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And here you are, 14 years old, and you're like, wow, this is fucked up. I got dealt a really shitty hand in life. And we don't get to ask to be here. We just are. And it's a fucked up situation. But here I am.
So at that time, were drugs already in your life?
Yeah. Excuse me. Drugs were in my life during my teenage years. I did, but I never was, I never want to say I was an addict, because addicts are individuals who needed help to quit. I used, I stopped. I used, I stopped. However, I will say this. My use of angel dust and PCP was one of the things that destroyed my life.
Okay.
And I didn't even use it for a long, long period of time, and I didn't use it every day. But the reason why I say it destroyed my life is because I trusted somebody that I had partied with, and this person had protected me in the past from other male species. But I also knew that this person had a dark side.
Okay.
And that he would get females high on PCP angel dust and he would rape them.
Yeah.
And I knew this about him. But I was never interested in him in that way. I looked at him, he's just my homeboy. That was it.
Okay.
I actually had a crush on his cousin. And everybody knew that. Everybody knew I had a crush on his cousin. Everybody knew I was not interested in him.
Yeah.
And everybody knew that this individual preyed on females. If you didn't want to give it up, he would take it. But he would get you high in order to take it. Okay. He couldn't have done it if I was sober. That would have never happened.
Yeah. How old was this guy?
Let's see. My daughter's 40. My eldest daughter is 40.
Okay.
And she was conceived from rape. So this is my second rape in life.
So that's him?
This is a different person, though. Not the one from when I was 14. This is a different man.
Got you. Okay.
So
is this the father of your daughter?
This is the father of my child.
Wow. Okay.
So she's 40 years old now. I told her at the age of 12 how she was conceived. She actually didn't believe me at the time. She's 12. She heard stories about her mom. She wasn't sure what was true, what wasn't, what was true and what was false.
Yeah.
And her response was, "Oh, that was your excuse for being a hoe," which wasn't the story. She got slapped. I slapped the shit out of her for saying that to me. She never said that to me again.
Yeah.
The irony in this is that she's 40 now, and just last year, she decided to do 23andMe.
Yeah.
And she asked me, "What is the name of the man that you said, sexually assaulted you and is my father?" And so I told her his name.
Yeah.
She said, "I found him on 23andMe and he is my dad. And I also have a sister and I also have a brother. And they are all, the mothers have children from the man who raped me." One of the females, her sister, she's actually, her mom had a relationship with the individual. So that was,
okay.
That was a consensual situation.
Okay, I got you.
The brother, I am thinking by the way he reacted to my daughter's story. No, my mom was not in a relationship with that person. She was sexually assaulted, and that's how I was conceived. Her brother that she just discovered last year, he doesn't want to believe it. He doesn't want to believe that his dad's a rapist, that his dad's on Megan's Law, that his dad is a predator.
Yeah.
So he decided and told my daughter and the sister, "I don't want nothing to do with you guys." He just totally just doesn't want nothing to do with it. The sister.
So she did reach out to the dad and tried to make contact with him?
Who?
Your daughter.
No.
Oh,
no,
she did not?
No,
Okay.
no. I'm going to get to that part right now. So the sister, she decides she's going to take the liberty of reaching out to her biological father, which her mother and he had a relationship.
Yeah.
But that's not the same scenario as with my daughter.
Yeah, correct.
So she ends up giving my daughter's phone number to the rapist. And he recently calls her and says, I'm your dad, and I don't remember doing this to your mom. You know, I used to protect her, and, you know, she was my homegirl, and we used to get high together. And my daughter's like, he says he doesn't remember what happened. And I'm like, back it up. Do you remember years ago, you were probably between 5 and 7, and I got into a car accident? And I had left my relationship in LA, and I had went back to the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And I had gotten into a car accident. And so I asked my homegirl, I said, hey, can you watch my daughter while I go to physical therapy? She said, sure. So when I get back from physical therapy, my daughter's hiding. She's crying and she's hiding. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on, you know? So I get in the car, I go home, and we get to my brother's house, and my daughter says to me, Mom, some man came in, and when so-and-so was downstairs cooking spaghetti for us, this person came upstairs, and he put his tongue in my mouth and his fingers in my coochie. What? Mind you, this little girl's between 5 and 7, telling me this. And I'm fucking, what the fuck? So I tell my bro, hey, bro, watch her. I got to do something. I get in my car. I go back to this house where I know he lives and he stays. It's the family house.
Yeah.
His mother comes to the window and I ask for him. She says he's not here. Why? I tell her the story of what my daughter just told me. And she says, your daughter's a fucking liar. And I said, hold on, bitch. She's this old. There's no way she just made this up and she's hiding and crying. No, there's no way it's a made-up story.
Yeah.
So I tell her straight out, I'm going to find your son, I'm going to kill that motherfucker, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to kill you since you condone this shit. You know your son's a fucking predator. I know you know it. So I go looking for him, but I don't find him. But I get a hold of him on the phone. This is how I find out that, this is where the story starts, that I ended up finding out that he raped me. So I confront him and I said, dude, what are you doing? You know, you nasty mother, what are you doing putting your hands on my daughter, trying to, you know, touch her and molest her? You know what he says to me? He says, what you tripping for? She's probably my daughter anyway. I raped you years ago. You wouldn't give it up that night. We were partying, smoking PCP angel dust, so I took it. So he admits to me that he raped me. So, but last year you're telling, or this, a few weeks ago, you talked to my daughter and you tell her you don't remember what happened? You're full of shit because you admitted to raping me. You admitted to molesting your own child.
So does she remember that happening?
She says she remembers the guy, but she didn't know it was him.
Wow.
So we just talked about this just recently, like last week. And I said to her, remember the story that you told me when so-and-so was watching you while I was at physical therapy? And she said, yeah, I remember he told me come sit on his lap. And then he did that. And I go, that was your dad. That was your biological father. That was the man who sexually assaulted me.
Wow.
You know? So the way she was asking me questions, though, just recently, it was like, you know, Mom, people do change. I understand that. But remember something. He's spending his life in prison. He's not getting out. He's a predator. He's on Megan's Law. Him and his brother.
So is he currently in prison?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Oh, well,
and
good.
He was up for parole March of 2024, this year. Mm-hmm. And they said, vale verga, you're not getting out. Yeah. And so he's not getting out. And I believe he has to wait another 9 years for another parole. I think it's 5 to 9, if I'm correct. So I'm like, I'm on the list, though. I contacted the prison. I said, I want to be notified when he's released.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't understand why he wants to reach out and say, I'm your dad. And then the irony in all this, too, is that when his mom finds out who her mom is, oh, wait a minute. she wanted to kill you back then. She even threatened to kill me.
Yeah.
And she's going to put two and two together. Oh, shit.
So what's crazy?
Her mom is Mama Kim.
Yeah.
What the?
So what's crazy about this whole thing to me is that the other daughters and sons that he had don't believe you, even though he's serving basically a life sentence in prison for doing these exact things. But they don't believe that happened to you.
I think may believe. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that name. I believe the sister.
I could scratch that.
I believe the sister may believe my daughter, but the brother does not at all, because when my daughter explained how she was conceived, he was just like, I don't want to believe that. What if that's how I got here too?
Yeah.
Because he's trying to find out who his dad is, because I guess his mom is not telling him who his dad is.
Okay.
Or maybe she's not sure who his dad is. So I don't know who his mom is, but I do know who the mother of my daughter's sister is.
I got you.
And I'm not going to badmouth her. She had a bad life herself. She was really addicted to drugs. And I really believe that she was still another victim of the man who sexually assaulted me, because he got her high.
Yeah.
He did the same drug with her that he did with me. So I already know that he was doing that, trying to get where he needed to go.
That was the thing he did.
That was the thing he did. That was the thing he did. And I also know this because one of my foster sisters, she had told me that he tried to sexually assault her, and then she turned around and threatened him, saying, hey, I'll tell my carnal. And if you know who our carnal is, you know not to even go there. He would get his, something bad would happen to him. But now I'm thinking that my foster brother, he just found out about our homeboy raping me and that I have a daughter from him. And so they're both in prison right now. And I'm really concerned about, you can communicate with prisons,
absolutely. Yeah.
Any way you want. And I'm just like concerned that because he just found out what happened to me 40 years later, that he's going to want to take matters into his own hands. And I don't want anybody retaliating.
Yeah.
Vengeance is God's.
Yeah.
And he's in prison for the rest of his life. I don't believe he's going to get out. He's affiliated.
So the time that's passed for you has kind of closed that wound, so to speak, right? And
yes.
yeah.
I love my daughter regardless of how she got here. She's married, successful. They have a beautiful life, a beautiful home. They have two beautiful children. I mean, like, they're very successful in life. My son-in-law is in law enforcement.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and my daughter works for a certified public accountant. So they make good money. They have a beautiful house. They're financially stable, and they've been together since high school.
That's awesome.
So, they have a great life, and I'm glad I kept her. I could have, because back then when that all happened, I actually was trying to work it out with somebody that I was dating, and the whole thing that triggered me going out to party that night when I got raped by my homeboy was I was visiting from LA, and I went to go see my ex to see if maybe we could work things out. And he had a drinking problem, unfortunately. And he was one of those guys that he would black out and forget what he did, or who he did, I should say.
Yeah, wow.
And I had brought a girl over to spend the night there. And when I woke up to use the bathroom, I caught them both doing the wild thing. So I ended up trying to beat up two naked people that were doing the wild thing in the bedroom. And I'm thinking to myself, I took this trip for nothing. I went out. I met up with my homeboys that I had partied with before.
Yeah.
I trusted them. And that's when I was about 22, because I had Angelina when I was about 23.
Okay.
So you might have to take the name out again. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. So, 40 years later, here we are, and she knows how she got here, and she just tells me, if you would have had the mom that my uncle had, you would have had a different life.
Yeah.
You would have had a better life. Because let me tell you, my choices of men have been shit. You know, when you think that all you deserve is what you come from. I came from the gang life. I came from the life of crime. I came from the street. I don't think a doctor's going to want to go out with me, or, you know, an attorney or somebody that has prestige or clout, you know, somebody that's, you know, I wouldn't think that somebody would want to date me because of where I come from. So all I've ever dated was thugs and punks and gangsters, and I've never made good choices with guys. And I think that's my biggest regret in life, is that I wish I would have made better choices, and I wish I would have been a better mom. Yeah, wow. I didn't have the role model, though. I didn't have a mother figure, and you know, I mean, left at 14. I mean, what are you going to... I was following gangsters in the streets and pimps and prostitutes and dope fiends and drug dealers. You know, that's who my family was, unfortunately. Yeah. My family wasn't good examples. You know, I didn't have people, you know, hey, you got to finish school, you know. Yeah. Hey, you got to go to college, you know, like...
So I do want to piece together some of the stuff that you were mentioning. So if we can start maybe with the drug use, right? I know it wasn't a prominent thing necessarily, but what got you to that point of using for the first time? Or where were you, or who were you with? Or was it a peer type pressure thing, or was it your decision, you know, those kind of things?
I think a lot of it, I would never say I've been a follower. I've always been more of a leader. Okay. I've done things... I'm not blaming nobody. They were my choices. Yeah. My choices. So I think, like, my first drink was at home. I used to actually sneak my dad's beer.
Okay. How old were you at that time?
I want to say I was 10.
Wow.
11, 12.
I mean, it would have to be before 14, right?
Yeah. I think I started at 10 trying to self-medicate myself, because I was just a miserable kid. I recall being very, I wouldn't say delusional, but I was always fantasizing.
Okay.
I always would fantasize that I was a movie star, or I was a singer. I remember I used to go in my room.
But that's little girls, right?
Yeah,
That's what they do.
I'd go in my room and grab my brush and pretend I was Diana Ross and the Supremes, and I'd get up there and I'd start doing the dance and everything, you know, and it helped me to escape from the abuse that I was trying to endure with my mother. Yeah. Every day hearing, I don't want you. You're worthless. You were a mistake. You weren't meant to be. From 10 to 14, I mean, like I said, I went to the quinceañera. I wanted to come back home, but I'm sometimes thinking maybe that's the way it was supposed to go down, because that's the way it did go down. And I've been on my own ever since. Yeah. You know, and it has made me the woman that I am today. Absolutely. Like, I'm glad I went through hell. Some people tell me, what? Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad I went through hell. I'm glad I went through the abuse that I endured, because now I can tell someone else, you don't got to give up.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do not got to give up. You do not have to throw in the towel. You do not have to take your own life. Life is still worth living. And I look around me now and I have some wonderful friends. I have beautiful children, beautiful grandchildren, and I'm glad that a few attempts at taking my life were unsuccessful, because that wasn't just my first attempt. Oh. I tried later on in life as an adult as well. Wow. So, there were times in my life where it went really, really dark. The foster home that I was in, where I experienced the first sexual assault, that foster mother actually got me involved in witchcraft. So I learned witchcraft at the age of 14.
Oh, wow.
So, I went from, that's when I tell people I experienced the darkness, you know, practicing witchcraft. And then at 18, asking Jesus Christ into my life was a real big deal, because a lot of people say, God ain't real, blah, 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 blah. Well, I hate to tell you, but you guys are all wrong, way wrong, because I practice darkness. I saw that Satan was real and that he can grant your prayers too. He can answer your prayers as well.
Oh.
Okay. And I saw how when Christ came into my life that I actually had to go to my pastor. I actually had to go to them and say, I'm still struggling with this darkness and I'm having, these things happening to me. And a lot of people didn't understand it. I mean, I've seen figures in my room and they would turn around and have my face.
Yeah. When you were awake?
I was awake, yeah. And and what was strange is I found out later on that my foster mother never taught her own biological daughters witchcraft, but she taught me.
How strange.
Yeah, and so when my foster sister reached out to me to say, hey, my brother wants to ask you for forgiveness, I had told her, hey, did you do this too? And she's like, oh no, I knew my mom did it, but I didn't know she taught you. I go, girl, your mother taught me all kinds of craziness, Wow. And
so what have you seen from practicing that? Something that you could talk about?
I've seen people, she taught me how to make people sick.
Wow.
Like how to make people sick, permanently sick. And then she would introduce me to the people and show me that they were permanently sick. And I just thought it was so strange. I'm 14. I don't know what's going on. I'm a teenager. I'm just like, what is happening? And I really, really believe to this day that I believe she loved me, but I believe she was in it for the money.
Yeah.
You get paid for having a foster child. You're compensated. I believe that it was for the compensation. I don't really believe that she did it because she wanted to protect me or save me, because she was exposing me to darkness. Yeah. And that her biological son...
She was getting something in return, right?
Yeah, and then her biological son is the one who took my virginity.
Man.
So I was just like, there's nothing but darkness here, and
yeah.
I had to go.
So when you say making people sick, like what kind of sickness did you see?
I saw people have permanent respiratory problems. I saw one person that was bedridden, and they were like, she's just always sick.
And prior to that, you saw them healthy?
Correct.
Okay, wow. Okay.
So that's why when people say it's not, Satan's not real, God's not real.
And this type of practice is... And I'm going to be careful what I talk about because I believe in this stuff. And
Santeria.
That stuff is crazy. So
it was Santeria.
Yeah. So I believe in that obviously the evil power, and I believe in God, right? So when I ask this question, is it something like attaching a demon to them and that's what's causing it? Or is it just the prayer asking for that sickness? Like, how does that work?
It's more of a ritual that you're performing. It's a certain
and
ritual.
You learned how to perform rituals.
She taught me with candles and needles and things that belong to them.
Wow.
Just stuff like that. So, for people to say it's fake, it's not fake. And it's very, very dark. Yeah. And I had to actually, I believe the word is denounce Satan in my life, because I still had this... Even after I asked Christ into my life, I still had this hovering. I can't really explain it. It's just this dark hovering over me that seemed to just follow me anywhere I went, because I still had problems with people and the violence still being in my part of my life. And even though I had Christ in my life, I was still fighting demons, and I'd go places and end up in physical altercations with people. And I'm like, wait a minute, I just asked Christ into my life and I'm still, dealing with these demons that I could not escape. Yeah. And if you're not really if you really don't understand the spiritual realm, you're not going to understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it's hard for people to comprehend unless they've been there, and
And that's why I was asking you a little bit more about that side, because the amazing transformation that you had to make to go and accept Christ right into your life after dealing and seeing what you saw. That's
Absolutely.
That's insane. That's really crazy. So I know that I asked you this earlier, and I don't know if we touched on it, but when you were using drugs at the time, you said PCP and what else?
I would use uppers, downers,
Okay.
cocaine.
So what did PCP do for you? I'm asking this question because we have a lot of listeners and a lot of people
That's a
that
good
have
question.
dealt with that prior.
In reality, PCP, it's a stupid drug. When I look back at it now, I don't remember what happened to me that day when I was sexually assaulted. This is what I do remember. I woke up in a nasty motel, butt naked, with semen all over me. Wow. And I ended up calling a male friend of mine who is now Oakland PD. And I called him and I said, hey, I believe I've been raped. Can you please come get me? And this male friend of mine, he came and picked me up. I told him what happened. He came. I was hysterical. I was crying. It did happen. It did happen. I was sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
And I did end up confirming it years later because he ended up admitting it. He ended up trying to molest the child that was conceived from that sexual assault, which is so bizarre that
is insane.
To confirm it years later, and then to tell your daughter at 12 and then her to confirm it at 39 and she's 40 now. It's just bizarre how the puzzle pieces of one's life can just come together and bring closure, because I've had to live with, it's been a secret. I didn't report my sexual assaults.
Yeah.
And let me hit on that. Women, we don't want to report them because we know and hear of too many stories where we're not believed. They don't want to believe us.
Yeah.
What were you wearing? What did you do? Did you provoke it? Oh, you were high. Oh, you were under the influence. Oh, it's your fault. Let me say this. Fuck that. I don't give a fuck how I'm dressed. If I've been drinking with you, if I did some drugs with you, if I did not invite you, if I did not consent to it and you took it because I was incoherent and I was under the influence and I could not respond, that is rape.
100%.
That is sexual assault. I did not ask for it. I don't give a fuck what happened that day that I was high. You had no business raping me. You had no business saying, you wouldn't give it up, so I took it. Obviously, I didn't want it.
Yeah. Well, it's important. I think what you just said right there is some of that needs to be heard by people out there that are listening.
We're ashamed.
Yeah.
We're embarrassed. We feel guilt. We feel like it's our fucking fault. But it's not our fault.
Yeah.
It's not. And I think I need to do something to advocate for women, because there are so many people who are, look at how long I kept this a secret.
Yeah.
My daughter's 40.
Yeah.
And my daughter's 40 years old. Fuck that. Women need to come forward. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed. Don't feel guilt.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, luckily he's serving time in prison, but he didn't get in trouble at all for what he did to you.
None.
And if he did it to you, how many others were there that you don't even know? You know what I mean?
I already know of a few other victims who have come forward and have given me their names.
Yeah.
And I could say off the top of my head, besides me, there's 3 more. Three more girls that told me he sexually assaulted them when they were high.
The MO, so to speak, for him was to get them high and do this, right?
Yep.
And that isn't somebody that has done it one time and just did
Absolutely.
that one time. That's somebody
He's a
that
serial
knows what
rapist.
he's doing. Yeah.
He's a serial rapist. And the world should know that he's a serial rapist. And I'm so grateful that he's probably never going to get out of prison.
Yeah, good.
I mean, he should never be out. He's a danger to females. He's a danger to He's a danger to children.
Yeah.
Little girls, too. I mean,
Clearly.
Him and his brother are both on Megan's Law. So obviously they're predators because they had to register as sex
When
offenders.
somebody says, "Why do you care? It's probably my daughter anyway." That's a
sick.
special type of sick person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%.
It's appalling. It's appalling that, Well, I'm still alive to talk about it, right?
Yeah, that's, I mean, obviously, not everybody comes forward and tells their stories like this, right? So,
Exactly.
So you're here to do exactly what you were meant to do, I feel like, right?
Absolutely.
Everything happens for a reason. So.
And I think telling my story today helps me realize, too, that I really do want to advocate for women who think that they can't tell their story, that it's too late to come forward. Yeah, it's 40 years later, and I'm telling my story. Yeah, he's not going to get any prison time for what he did to me, but he's in prison. So good. He'll just sit in there and rot, whatever, He's where he deserves to be. He doesn't deserve to have a great life and have a family and, have a home and a wonderful life like other people do. He just doesn't deserve that to me. I mean, he's hurt so many females.
I agree.
And I know that they haven't come forward,
Yeah.
So, however, let's see, where we at now?
So I know that you explained a little bit about the drug use, and you did mention some of the gang stuff that you got involved in.
Yes.
So I did want to hear you touch on that a little bit.
Okay, yeah. I basically was, they called me Mama Kim. I would be considered a norteña, red rag.
Okay.
From the north. So, yeah.
What was the actual area that you were in? Like,
La Michon.
Okay.
La Michon. So,
So the
that
Mission
was
District in San
the
Francisco.
Mission District,
Gotcha.
yeah, in San Francisco. So that was basically my barrio, my hood.
Okay.
If you needed to find Mama Kim, just go down to the hood, go down to 24th and Mission, and she'd be somewhere out there, partying, getting high, doing something. I was also notorious for. I was an ass whooper. I was a really big ass whooper. Like a lot of people will come forward and say that I beat the shit out of lots of females, and guys would even homies would pay me to beat the shit out of females. Wow. So
explain that a little bit. Tell us some of those stories.
I think a lot of it was just little Kimmy was holding a lot of anger in, bottled up from being at home with the abuse, and then having just to live in the streets and having to, had to be an adult fast.
I'm going to ask you a tough question. Was any of that, in your opinion, jealousy? Like some of these girls had better lives than you did, or felt like, was any of that a part of it, or no?
No, it was all basically gang-related shit.
Okay.
Like, oh, this bitch called you out.
Okay.
So let's throw down, that kind of stuff.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
It was more of gang-related stuff. It wasn't, no, I didn't have any, like I mentioned, they call me Mama Kim, and I believe that name came from me trying to be lots of the girls in the streets' mama, because I didn't have a mama, so I was trying to be everybody else's mama too,
Got it.
So, and I recall taking, a few females under my wing and trying to like protect them from it being out in the streets and protect them from other females that, they may have problems with. I mean, I knew a lot of females were messing with, like, say, another homegirl's man. And then that homegirl wanted to beat the shit out of her. And so I'm trying to protect her so that she don't get the shit kicked out of her. So I was always trying to keep peace too.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was a shit disturber as well, when I had to be. I was never a bully, though. I was more of a protector.
Okay.
Trying to protect the ones that didn't have anybody to protect them. Because there were a lot of girls in the streets. When I was out there were a lot of girls in the streets. They were turning tricks, trying to survive because they were young and they didn't have any education. So they were just turning tricks, trying to survive out there. And I personally said, I would never do that. I'd rather rob you
Yeah.
I'd rather put a gun to somebody than to turn a trick. And that was a vow that I made to myself, and I'd never, ever, ever turned a trick in my
I feel
life.
like there's two kind of paths you can take when you were sexually assaulted at a young age, right? You can take the nobody's ever going to do this to me again route, or you can take the it's not really that bad. I've already dealt with the worst I can get kind of thing, right?
I think, yeah, I agree with you. But I think like going into relationships for myself, I would be with somebody just to be with somebody. I wasn't necessarily in love with that person, but I didn't want to be alone.
Yeah.
And back in the day when I was younger, I always felt that, oh, I needed a man to complete me. You know, a man would make me whole.
Got it.
That is so far from the fucking truth. Okay. I want to say 14 years, June 16th, I just hit 14 years single. And I'm living my best life single, so I'm happy. So, but yeah, I look back and I made such horrible choices with guys. And it was only because I just didn't want to be alone. You know, I wanted love. You know, I didn't get it at home.
Yeah.
So I felt like a man was the way to get the love that I needed. But you know what I found out? The love that us women need, if you have children, it's right there staring you straight in the face.
Yeah. Well,
Right in your face. And you know what? I didn't see it till I was way older. I think I was like 40-something years old when I realized, shit, what the fuck? I don't need a freaking man. You know, I have love. I have children who love me unconditionally. Whether my mom is right, wrong, or indifferent, they still love me, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I have to say, I haven't been the greatest mom.
Yeah.
You know, I put men first.
So
I have
feel
to
like
say that. I put relationships first because I thought that's what I needed.
Got it. Okay. That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
I feel like the time that you need a man involved is when you're raising your kids, right? You want to have a stable, you know, male figure and a stable female figure in their life to help raise a strong child, right? It's at your later years in life and you're 14 years single, I can imagine that you're like you said, living your best life, because at this point you're not raising kids anymore. You're kind of on your own. You're not making those bad choices and finding the guys that were the wrong decision and dealing with that. So,
yeah.
Oh, that says a lot.
Yeah. I think the other incident that took place that really brought me to where I am now is the last assault was in 2005, where I was actually held hostage at gunpoint in my own home by a white supremacist. I can say that because he is known as a white supremacist. So he broke in my house and held me hostage at gunpoint 4th of July weekend in 2005.
How do you know this guy? Or how did you come to know this guy?
I was a friend, and I played with some emotions. I'm going to be honest.
Okay.
I was selling drugs at the time, trying to make extra money, even though I had a job. And I was playing a little bit with meth, trying to stay awake to do what I needed to do in life. Poor excuse. I look back now, it's a poor excuse. I'm actually a certified substance abuse counselor now. So I went to college for that.
Nice.
So yeah, to University of the Pacific actually, and I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
So in 2005, when I was just asking how you came to know him.
Right. Yeah. So what ended up happening was I was hanging out with the wrong people, and he was part of that crowd.
Okay.
And I believe I played with his emotions, making him think that there was more to the relationship, the friendship, than there was.
Yeah.
And I believe that he misconstrued. I really believe that he wanted to like be in a relationship with me, and I didn't want that. And once I made that known, the rejection, that was it.
Yeah.
He started to stalk me. He started to call me up and threaten me. He would follow me. He would have other people follow me. And this went on for 10 and a half months. He even would go into like friends' houses if their garages were open, and he'd roll in there in his wheelchair and be like, "Where's that fucking bitch at? You know, I'm gonna kill that bitch." And go see one of my friends who does karaoke. He went into her karaoke show asking for me, like, where's that bitch Kimmy at, And just different places. He'd send people to my house at 2, 3 in the morning to ring my doorbell because I wouldn't speak to him. And they'd say, "Oh, he wants to talk to you right now." And I'm like, well, if he tells you to eat dog shit, are you going to do that too? Like, why are you coming up to my stairs and ringing my doorbell at 2, 3 in the morning? And I have a kid.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm like thinking, what is going on with this dude? So for 10 and a half months, he stalked me. And it started in one city, went to another. I finally had to create a case against him. And I didn't know how to do that. So I met an officer in Stockton, and he said, "Let me help you create a case against him." But the part that I messed up on was that I didn't report everything that took place. So when he was indicted and convicted, he wasn't indicted and convicted on everything that he did to me. So he got 4 years. That's it. And I have a metal plate in my neck, a metal plate in my back. I have a device in my hip, which is pretty embarrassing, but I'm going to explain it. It's called a Medtronic's InterStim, and it's a device that is connected to your nerves in your rectum and your vagina. Because of the sexual assault that I experienced with this individual in 2005, the white supremacist, he raped me with objects and the stub of his amputated leg, and did nerve damage inside of me. So my brain doesn't know when I have to use the restroom like a normal person. So I have a stimulator that's connected to my nerves in those parts of my body now to tell me when I have to use the bathroom.
Wow.
Or I'll go on myself. And our fucking justice system gave this piece of shit 2-strike violent felon a pass on the 3rd strike. And this is what the judge said to me. "Well, I'm going to give him a pass because he hasn't been in trouble in a while." Your Honor, we're in a fucking courtroom. And yes, I did curse in the courtroom. And yes, I almost got in trouble. And I actually, under my breath, but the judge heard me say, "You must be a white supremacist too." Because 4 years for what he did to me.
So you explained a little bit about what he did, which is unimaginable, right? I mean, just
He drugged me with meth.
So he drugs you with meth.
And rapes me with objects.
How did you end up getting a plate and everything in your neck?
Well, he beat me. And he hurt me. And so my neck would have collapsed if I didn't have the bolts and plates here. He had grabbed me by my neck and he had threw me to the asphalt this was one situation. Mind you, he stalked me for 10 and a half months. So there were several situations that took place in that 10 and a half months.
Okay.
So it wasn't the first assault from that person. It was just the last that really took me out physically, basically. So
You think he was trying to kill you and wasn't successful?
Oh, no.
Or was
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
okay.
Absolutely. Let me go ahead and explain. After all this went down, I ended up getting a phone call from the district attorney's office. And he said, "I need you to come in and see me." And so I said, "Sure." So I went in and he said, "I had a gentleman come in who would like to remain anonymous, but he's concerned about the safety and he's in fear for your life and your child's. And I really recommend that you go through a legal identity change."
Wow.
So we need to close your old identity. You need a new social, new driver's license, new birth certificate, new name. And this was recommended by the district attorney's office in San Joaquin County. And my child and I had to go through identity changes through the whole court system. And we became part of victim witness and protection and safe at home address for confidentiality. It's been a rough journey.
Wow.
Rough journey, yeah.
So when you say white supremacist, what kind are you talking about? What?
Well, he made it known when he rolled in his wheelchair into the courtroom. He screamed KKK AB, Aryan Brotherhood.
Oh, okay.
And he is affiliated. He has been to prison before. He does have white power across his chest. He's tatted down, swastikas, the whole 9 yards. And that's another thing why I was puzzled as to why do you want to be with me?
Yeah, I was going to ask what your background was.
Okay, because I'm Spanish, Mexican, Sicilian, and Guamanian. I am not white at all. I'm Pacific Islander. You know, Sicily's between Italy and Africa, and Mexican and Spanish. So I didn't understand why he wanted to pursue me any further. But I will say this, that during the 10 and a half months, I never experienced so many verbal threats and so much stalking in my life. And my youngest daughter is half African American.
Okay.
And he would use certain, try to use tactics like, oh, if you don't talk to me, I'll do this. If you don't talk to me, I'll go over here. Well, one time he said, if you don't talk to me and my homies, my white friends, we're going to go up to the school. We're going to kidnap your nigga daughter and we're going to rape her and then we're going to kill her. That's what he told me. And I said, over my fucking dead body. Well, being that this was all going on, I already had things in place. When we get at home, how we close the doors, we lock them. You know, I was teaching my daughter basically how to run from a stalker. It was so sad.
Horrible, yeah.
So
horrible.
I had a friend at the school for the after-school program. So I called her up and I said, hey, that piece of shit is talking about going up to the school and kidnapping my kid. Check this out. I call her. She's making sure my little girl's safe. I roll up to the school. There's that motherfucker waiting for my kid. Waiting for my kid to come out of the school and snatch her.
You caught him there.
I caught him.
What tough. So, did you call the police? Did you confront him?
Every time, let me just tell you something. Every time I would call the police, he'd be gone. It was always gone. It was too late. He'd be gone.
Yeah.
All the time. It's so aggravating when you're trying to create a case against somebody who is actually stalking you. Like everywhere you go. I'd go to the mall. Ha, I see you, bitch. You call me on the phone. Text me. Ha, yeah, you're wearing a red shirt, black jeans, red shoes, and you're carrying a bag from JCPenney's. He would know my every move. Like constantly. I lost a job because of him. He followed me to work one morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, chased me on the freeway going towards Livermore. I ended up going through an intersection running a red, almost got hit by a semi. I ended up losing my job because they said, we can't have this kind of stuff going on, here.
Of course. I mean.
So I lost my job. Then he hurt me. So the chain of events brought me to where my daughter and I ended up becoming homeless due to my disability because I ended up becoming disabled after he had assaulted me and everything. We ended up being home. I mean, we moved 6 times in 10 and a half months. And we'd go to a friend's house, he'd find me. We'd go to a motel, he'd find me. Everywhere I went, he would freaking find me. And it was so fucking just scary. Just scary. Like you didn't know when it was going to end, when it was going to happen. And finally, I had to actually call my brother and say, dude, I need to leave my daughter with you. I'm running from a stalker. I'm afraid for her life. I got to do something.
Yeah.
So I left my daughter with my brother and his wife for a little while, but she just wasn't having it anymore. She's like, I want my mom, you know? So I ended up going to get her, and we ended up being homeless, living out of my car in a motel room for a while and living off credit cards. And then I ended up finding a program that...
How old was she at this time?
Let's see. My youngest is 26 now. This was in 2005. Oh God, I can't do math in my head.
Yeah, I got you.
yeah. So she was little, you know, she was a little kid, you know, and the things she experienced, like one incident where I went to my friend's house and he literally jumped on the car door out of his wheelchair, was hanging from his hands and his teeth onto the window. I'm like, I called him Spider-Man because, mind you, he had no feeling. He had been in a car accident at the age of 16. Okay. So he was in a wheelchair, and he had gotten back some of his upper body feeling, but not his lower. So he could like run around the walls like Spider-Man. It was just crazy, and he'd have no pain. He could run around on rocks, glass, whatever. He was a strange creature, very strange creature. And people would say, how did he do all that in a wheelchair? One, he had a gun. Two, he drugged me with meth. And he said that to the judge. You know what, Your Honor? If I didn't have a gun and I didn't drug her, she would have overtaken me. She would have overpowered me. He told the judge that. I'm thinking to myself, you're admitting to doing all this and the judge is still only going to give you 4 years.
So he's not incarcerated right now?
Nope, he's out. In fact, he's somewhere in the vicinity.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame. He didn't get enough prison time. And unfortunately, I have PTSD. I have insomnia because I have nightmares sometimes. I'm somewhat a little bit paranoid at times. Yeah. And then, you know, all this damage to my body, I'll never be the same. You know, I can't work out like I used to. You know, I can't walk like I used to. You know, I can't go jogging like I used to because I just have too much pain, you know?
Yeah.
And the nerve damage that he did inside of my body, you know, to cause fecal and urinary incontinence on myself if I don't have this device to tell me my brain went to go to the bathroom, it's pretty fucking embarrassing. Yeah, you know, I mean, you know, it's sad and to say he only got 4 fucking years and 3 years parole, that was it.
Wow. And
you know, that's our shitty ass justice system. So, as I mentioned, I was sexually assaulted at 14. My first experience with sex was violent. Then at 22, my homeboy, and then the white supremacist in 2005. So,
goodness.
I've survived 3 sexual assaults, and yeah, he wanted to kill me. And that's why the DA told me to come in, because he said that the guy that assaulted me, he told the other dude, he goes, when I get out of prison, I'm going to kill that bitch. I'm going to kill that bitch. Because guys like him, they blame you for putting them in prison, not their actions.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
yeah.
It's not that what he did to me that put him in prison. I put him in prison. So I'm like, so that's when the district attorney said, I'm afraid for her life. I really think that she needs to go through an identity change, because he's talking about when he gets out of prison, he's going to look for her, he's going to kill her. Well, I hate to say it, but not too long ago, I saw his sister from afar. So if his sister's around, he's got to be around too. You know what I mean?
So you don't know if he's still looking for you. I mean, have you heard at all?
No, I haven't heard anything. So I don't want to take a chance, and I don't take that chance. So I went through the identity change, and I did move out of state, and I have a better life. My quality of life is better. My mental health is better. You know, I'm not looking over my shoulder all the time, wondering, is this person going to get me? Yeah. And finish what he tried to do, you know, a long time ago. You know, and it's sad because the reason why I believe him too is I had gone with him one time. We were going to one of his friends who was in a trailer park. And we went over there to get some drugs. We went to go over there to get some meth.
Yeah.
And his friend was over there, and there was some girl there. And the guy who hurt me was telling me, you see that chick right there? And I go, yeah. She thinks that he and her got it, you know, that they're on good terms. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, she put him in prison years ago. And I go, oh, really? And yeah, and she thinks right now that, you know, that everything's cool, but he's waiting for the right moment and he's going to take her out. So I'm sitting there, and mind you, these are all white supremacists, okay? So I'm thinking, he's all telling me all this shit that's going to go down. And I'm like, yeah. And then when the DA called me in, I'm like, yeah, this dude might want to take me out too, like his friends. So she put him in prison. She came back, he got out, and they befriended one another again. And she's thinking that everything's cool, but he's still thinking about taking her life. So I'm thinking, oh my God.
Do you know if anything ever happened to her?
I don't know. I don't know.
That would be
but you know what?
interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting to find out. But yeah, crazy,
Well,
very crazy.
I'm glad you were able to find peace in a different area and not have to have that feeling, that impending doom feeling, you know, looking over your shoulder, waiting to see if, you know, is this going to be the day he sees me before I see him? That, I mean, it's a horrible thought process to have every day,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
And I can only imagine what your daughter must have been feeling at that young age. That's something that can scar you for life too, you know.
Definitely.
I mean, she may still have that going
absolutely.
on,
Yeah,
know?
she still has issues. She's only 26, but she still has issues where I think she does the same thing, looking over the shoulder bit all the time. You know, we're always a little paranoid, you know, because we're just not sure if he's going to see us. You know, I think it's safer for me to be gone, even though she's still here in the state. But it's safer for me to be gone because you can change your identity, but you can't change your face unless you got a lot of money. And you can't change your voice. And I'm told that I have a distinctive voice or accent or something that... Oh, I know who that is.
You almost have like a New York accent a little bit.
And you know, it's funny because it's a speech impediment. So, oh, you know, that's Mama Kim, you know, you know what I mean? So, oh yeah, that's that bitch Kimmy, you know. So I never wanted to stay here much longer. My quality of life was so bad, even though I have a great support system and I have a lot of loved ones here. I just always felt that it was best for me to finally just make a home somewhere else and just come here to visit. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't like everything where I'm at. I don't like everything about that state either. But, you know, hey, I'll deal with it. Their weather sucks. It's bipolar like some of the people. You get all seasons in one day.
But I can imagine.
Hey, I'm just going to tell you, get all seasons in one fucking day. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I really appreciate you coming here and telling. I mean, like you said, you know, 40 years in the making of you actually telling your entire story. You
know what, though? There's one more thing I want to add that I just found out recently.
Yeah, please.
My mother, my biological mother, who is 85 years old and still alive, had her 80th birthday 5 years ago, of course. She had a birthday party. And one of my cousins was there, and she saw a gift that said, "Happy birthday, Mom." So she's looking around, and she's like, well, where's Kimmy? Kimmy ain't here. Come to find out, my mother... This is how you put all the puzzle pieces together as to why she treated me like shit. She had another child from another man that she gave up for adoption. So I am going to be 63. I believe my older sister is 2 to 3 years older than me. So my mother was forced to give that child up for adoption because my grandmother is an old-fashioned Catholic from Guadalajara, Mexico. And my grandfather was an old-fashioned Catholic from the island of Guam.
Okay.
You got to give up the baby. You're pregnant out of wedlock. It's a bastard child. Wah, wah, wah. Then she meets my dad. My grandparents love my dad. So she ends up having a child from her first love, but can't keep the baby. So now and I just found this out just recently also. She doesn't know that I know and that my children know. And what's funny is my biological brother knows and all of his family know about our sister, but I do not know, and she does not know I exist.
Wow. It would be
So
interesting. Have you guys ever tried to locate each other? Or I mean, you try to locate her, you can't.
No, and the reason why I haven't is because the cousin who ended up meeting her 5 years ago, she ended up telling my eldest daughter. So my eldest daughter says, hey, Mom, I don't know if I should tell you this, but this might even like give you closure as to why your mom treated you like shit all these years and why she didn't want you. Because she had another daughter from somebody else, and that was her first love. And she had to give that child up for adoption, and she didn't want to give that child up for adoption. So I ended up being Daddy's little girl, Daddy's pumpkin. That was my nickname, Pumpkin. So, my dad was just like, I'm Daddy's little girl. And so I really think my mother resented me because of that, because my dad loved me so much.
You kind of stole the spotlight from her. Wow.
Yep.
That's
So
crazy.
it's funny. So I've actually just confirmed recently that my biological brother and his whole entire family, his wife and kids, all know about my biological sister from the other man, and nobody has come forward to tell me. So I don't want nothing to do with my family. I haven't had anything to do with them. I never hear from you any time in the year. You never call. You never reach out. You never say happy birthday. We don't have any communication as family. You guys are so blessed to have one another because
Absolutely.
I've never had it. I've never been celebrated. I've never had a birthday as a little girl. I don't ever remember having a birthday party.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll tell you this: you're part of the family, so she definitely considers you
yes,
part of the family
and
and like a sister. So
yeah. I always tell everybody I'm adopted.
Yeah.
I'm an adopted.
I mean, everything that you've been through and everything that you've endured in life, and all of the, I'll say, the rape, the assaults, the gangs and drugs and everything that brought you to where you are today is why you are who you are today, right? I mean, that it's a testament to you to show how strong you are as an individual, and
you can't give up.
Yeah, you can't give up.
You can't give up. You got to just keep persevering and enduring. Whatever doesn't destroy you, it just makes you stronger anyway. Whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I really believe that. I believe I'm an extremely strong female. Like I've endured some shit that I sometimes look at and I'm like, wow, you made it through that.
Yeah.
And I want other females to know that they can make it through too and not to give up. And, just because, like I tell people I graduated from high school. I have an associate's degree in business management, and I also have a certification in substance abuse counseling. So you can still finish school. I mean, even though I didn't finish school at 14, I still pursued it. I got my GED and I bettered myself. So for people to say they're a product of their environment is the most weakest cop-out ever. Because if you want to be somebody, you can be somebody. You just got to go for it. You got to pursue your goals and just follow your dreams, and just never give up.
I agree. It's never too late.
Absolutely. As long as you got breath in you, right?
Right. 100%. Keep the fight. You got to stay in the fight.
That's right.
Well, Kim, I really, again, appreciate you coming out here and talking to us and telling us your story. It's a crazy story, amazing story, and I'm hoping that the right people hear it, that have dealt with stuff that's similar to what you had to deal with, because there's probably millions of people out there that have had similar
abandoned teenagers. There's so many
experiences,
of them. Not loved, not wanted.
And I'm hoping that they see this and go, hey, she was strong enough to do this.
Exactly.
I can be strong enough to do this and get through
I
it.
agree.
So, thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. Thank you for letting me share my story.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll have you back someday.
Yes, absolutely.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my